Da da da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I have been in the inside, but I have been more in the inside and not have gotten even a fraction of what I've gotten today. Sometimes I end my day and I am so zapped from what I absorb or what I put out there. And, today I didn't get anything done. Right before I came live, I sat here and thought, what were my accomplishments today? And guiltily, I say not too much. I made my brother in law some focaccia bread, along with making myself a loaf of bread also. But other than that, it was just taking in the lessons, just in that tidying up the edges. We all have phrase. Lots of us think that we've got everything down packed, and none of us got it down packed. Lots of times we would go into class and we'd have these exams, right? And they'd give us like half an hour to do the exam. And I would whip through it in 5 minutes. Of course, I'm going to get a D or an E or an F, which I did quite often. But I did have an additional 25 minutes after completing those tests that I could have spent in my own choices, that I could have really applied myself and gone over those questions again. I could have checked off all my T's. I could have and would have and should have improved my grades. But I didn't care about education then, not like I do now. I did love learning, but learning was always on my terms. You might look at what I'm doing now and say that these are on my terms, but not really. Not really. I put my desires, I put my goals out there into the world. Hello, Eugene. I'm very good tonight. How's your night going? How's your night going? Before I lose track. I put out that good cheer and those wishes and those goals, but there's no guarantees that it's going to turn out the way that I want. But being a human, right? And not having that direct, right, map set out, this turn, do this, stop here, absorb this, carry on, right? We are going to just carry on the way that we feel is right for us. And it's not always the case. I have been course corrected a few times. I am tight in some understandings that I do believe that because I am not secure, I'm not tight in that belief, I'm not committed to that there's got to be this willingness to expand off of that, right? Pretty sure, right? This is what dad told me. This is what I learned in school. This is what I read in the book. This is what I watched in a documentary. But I have to absorb it. I have to understand it as a truth. And if at the end of that presentation of whatever I'm involved in, I don't feel that, then I just don't feel that. That just doesn't get tagged on to the pile of things that I'm made up of. That is just some information that possibly I didn't resonate with. Now, doesn't mean it's not true information, that it's not helpful information. Lots of times these experiences, these conversations, these lessons that come across my path, this insight that changes me, right? And hopefully changes me in a good way, because I did take that in consideration today too. We live in a digital age, and oh my goodness, it's just getting more crazy town out there with the AI. I am not comfortable with taking lessons from something that I can't feel out. AI is, you can't feel out AI. AI is programmed. There is no emotion, there is no lenience, there is no forgiveness, there is no mediocre, there is no place for failure. Like, these are things and kinks that we need to work out. I actually watched a video today. I'm just going all over the place. I watched a video today, and it was actually a robot that was attacking its handler. I guess whoever is in the build, it was hanging from a hook, but it was right trying to take swings at the person that was working with it at the moment, and that is concerning, isn't it? It is worrisome because this is all new to us. We're moving in. This is the future, and we are moving into a future that we don't understand. We're moving into a future we have never experienced before, and moving into the future is a stupid idea to do it all together, because if it failed, then we're all crashing. We're all out of the game. It's why it's important to do it in different stages. That's why we have the Federal Drug Administration, so that there's certain protocols and tests and animal tests and human tests, that to make sure that once it gets into the mainstream public, that it's not going to wreak havoc, right? That people aren't going to drop from that. And I don't know where I was going with that, but it's definitely pertinent, right? We don't do enough feeling in our life. We take a lot of dictation. Whether we follow that dictation or not, I'm not quite sure about that. I think these days we just butt heads with whatever the last generation is, and we're just doing our own thing because we recognize that possibly the last generation didn't do so well. And I'm saying maybe we didn't recognize that. We do recognize that because we were the recipients, right? We were the ones who um, lived that life, and so we have to, right, again, be solid in our beliefs and in our understandings. And when we whitewash things, we make them insignificant. We make them so that possibly something that's detrimental for us to understand is just kind of brushed off to the side as if it was nothing, right? And we don't know everything. As humans, we second guess, we make up our own rules to the game. Oh my goodness, I was watching um, the Romanovs, the history of the Romanovs yesterday. And, they were one king, he was doing the bloodletting. Now, we all know that's kind of hooey fooey stuff. We know that that's not good for us. In fact, that was probably the cause of, specifically, what was the king's name? Right on the tip of my tongue, but I'm not going to spend 5 minutes trying to get it to drum to the surface. But he actually died from the fact that he was bloodletting, and he truly believed in it, and he was a very woke conscious man. But you know, technology and evolution is a process. It's moving into something we've never moved in before, and I get that. So I need to be willing to be course corrected, right, and not stick to the old ideas of bloodletting, right? These ideas that we knew to be true. What you think about is realized, and I get that, right? But if we realize something to be an untruth, then I think it's our responsibility actually to course correct in that. Now, I was looking at this. I've shown these a few times on my lives. This is sort of kind of in the route that I want to work in. So often we get our wires crossed, so often in that butting heads with what wants to control us, maneuver us, and whether it's for good reasons or bad reasons, whether it's for ill intent or if it's for really somebody who really cares and really wants to help or even has that knowledge to help. Lots of times, right? That offering of assistance is there. We go, oh, no, thank you. We're good, right? And that could be a meal and we haven't eaten in a week, or that's a meal that you could squirrel away and take home for the kids, right? And yet we don't want to seem needy. We don't want to seem down and out. We don't want people to see where we're actually at in our life. We don't want them to see the truth of us. And so we kind of, right, oh, it's all good. And again, that's a detriment to our well being. And that's a habit that we end up picking up that just damages. It just, right? That's set in pride. And it's important that when you need help to say, yes, please, right? So many times in my life, I was that person that just said, oh, I'm good, right? No, I'm good. And was hungry. But, right, I was a little fat kid, so I couldn't express to myself or anybody else that I was hungry because I was a little fat kid. I'm not supposed to be. I'm not supposed to be on a diet, not hungry. And this is how I moved in my life. And these are lessons that we put some energy in order to save a little bit of energy down the road when these insecurities and these limiting beliefs are triggered, and you know they're triggered. They are favorite tender spots, right? When right when we're being sheep herded or guided in directions. Okay. Um oh my goodness, Dave popped in today. Actually, yeah, it's actually just a housetop. It's been nice here. We'll just pull it down so you can get a little bit, well, not a cleavage, but how nice of a top it actually was. Yeah, it's been really nice here in Winnipeg the past few days. It's going to cool off for one day, and then we're going to get right back into the heat again, and it's going to be hot. Thank you for complimenting me on my top. I considered changing my top, but I said that would just be like not genuine, right? This is what I was wearing all day. This is what I do. I just tighten my ponytail and just came into my life. And that's the way that I want to do it. I don't want all these sticklers, all these, the flaws. I got a pimple on my cheek. I haven't had a pimple in, oh my goodness, a very long time. I'd like to say years, but I'm sure it hasn't been years. But my skin has been very, very good since I've given up makeup. Yeah, really surprising. I just did that overnight, and there were no issues in my confidence, and I was that girl that I couldn't even walk to the grocery store without stopping in the bathroom mirror and caking that stuff on my face. I don't ever remember going out in public, well, up until the past 6 years, without makeup. It was a staple in my life. It was like brushing my teeth every single day. It was not something I overlooked 100%, right? Okay, but getting back to what I was saying, you still get pimples? Oh my goodness. I had acne right into my 50s, Dave. I had acne, and I attributed giving up the makeup to my face clearing up, but not working. I have more time to do this, don't I? Right? And I'm passing germs and stuff into my skin. When I'm getting into something and I'm right into a lesson or a conversation, I'm right, I'm right into it. And I did that to myself 100%. But yeah, I have not had pimples in a long time. But like I said, I attribute to the fact that I did give up makeup. I had bad acne my entire life. Oh my goodness. Got pictures here. I just saved quite a few of my pictures. I had a flood in my apartment, and a lot of my pictures. Well, here's a good. Do you want to see this one, you guys? Okay, I'm going to say I am maybe 15 years old here, but it's a good example of what my skin was like, because my skin was like this right up into my 50s. That's Cindy, 15, 15 years old. Look at that big pom pom on the side of my head. Yeah, and those are very 1970s colors. I remember that top. I didn't have a lot of money to buy new clothes, but once I ended up in high school, it was important for me to try and draw myself away. I think I had already had from secondhand clothes. It was something my mother did when we were kids. But I didn't have a lot of money well, I did. I did have money. I was working. I had lots of money, but I spent it on goodies. And that's the truth. I have to be honest in that, because you know what? I could have had beautiful clothes, right? I could have had beautiful clothes. And every once in a while I'd buy myself a new item, but I remembered that top, right? I remember buying that top. It was one of the few items that I did buy brand new. But look at my skin, Dave. Look at all those zits. You can't really see it there, maybe a little bit better there, but my face was covered in zits. The funny thing is, though, Dave, I used to get in trouble all the time from touching my face, because my face would it would get so red and puffy and stuff. And I spent so much time in front of the bathroom mirror cleaning out those pores and everything. I just did not like whiteheads. Uh, right? So I lived with the redheads. But I have to say, as an adult, because I spent that time in front of the mirror and I cleaned those pores, I did not get craters. Right, those craters that you get from those big ass what do you call those big big infected, we'll just call infected zits, right? Those big red ones. And I was very lucky, and especially if I hadn't cleaned my face, there's no question that my face would be truly scarred right now. And now dermatologists, they routinely clean pores, and right. I'm grateful that my face is fairly clear now. But yeah, I could have put a dab of cover up on something. Can't see her, you can see it right there. I could have put a dab of cover up on it or something, but this is me, right? And it's important to show up as me because, like I was saying when I came in, oh my goodness, AI is so crazy. Like you have a hard time distinguishing what is a real presentation and what's not. They get the voices so good. They get the looks so good. But for me, being highly sensitive, being an empath, right? I feel out. That's why I love doing my lessons on YouTube. It's because I want to feel out the lesson. I want to feel out the person presenting the lesson. I have to do my very best to make sure that whatever I'm absorbing into my system, that at the very least, that's a truth for me. You don't know until you take the lesson. But I would like to have that option just to say, oh, that's fooey, right? That's fooey. And in the digital age, right, everything is so meticulously, perfectly presented. In this moment, it's not too difficult to spot the AI and then come out of it. But at the same time, being a curious mind, I have to take into consideration that lessons come across my path in all kinds of different ways. And Google has been a big part of my lessons, right? A big part of my story. I think a big part of that movement forward that I'm making, and whether it's on as a YouTube creator or a Google guide or in my posts or in the workspace that I'm working in, right? That I have to represent Google in a way. And I want to do it genuinely, but the best that I can do is show up with the zit on my face that possibly somebody can recognize that maybe I'm a real human being. And in my conversations and in the little flubbers and mistakes and right, and just the silliness of me that possibly AI just might not get and be able to replicate. I get it, right? I'm taking lessons out there, and it's hard for me to not take a lesson that really resonates with me. But once I find out that it's AI, then there is that little bit of uncomfortable. But being part of the betas, it's important for me just to keep moving in that, feeling it out, working with it a little bit, playing with it a little bit, because how else is Google supposed to learn, right? And then how am I supposed to learn? Because I get to be a part of those betas, being that person that sometimes gets to put their foot forward first before other people. I just got free Gemini, right? For being a part of a beta. I have to go in tomorrow and do a little bit and see what I can do with it and everything. But it's really exciting, and it makes me feel like I am part of that Google community, that even as a small YouTube creator, that right, that they recognize possibly that I have something to contribute, even if it's just my opinion or my lack of understanding, which I'm sure the bots will pick up if I'm not answering correctly or if I'm rushing through the test and I still have 95% of that time left, that I understand that I can go back there and I should go back there and I will go back there and make sure I spend that time in rehashing all the questions, right? All the lessons to make sure. that I've absorbed it proper. Not like there's going to be a test or anything, right? But in creating the best human being I possibly can. I understand we're moving in a digital age, in the age of, right, AI learning. And AI learning is out there for all of us, and we all have to move in it in a way that works for us, each one of us individually, right? Because we're all using AI differently from each other 100%. Okay, you guys, I am just going to grab a card here. I have no idea Monday how I'm going to start pulling the card first because I meant to come in today and pull the card first just for practice. And look what I did. I just spieled for over a half an hour on. Hopefully, there's a lesson there, right? If not for somebody else, I'll come in after my live and pull something out of it for myself. Okay, Dave, what are you yapping about? You don't need makeup. You have the. I have the. Oh, don't make me go red and rashy, Dave. That's very sweet of you to say. That's very, very sweet of you to say because that's not something that came across my path. Not very often, not in my lifetime. And it is something to get used to, right? I recognize myself as a little bit of a prize in my senior years, right? Right? I look at the wives out there, right? Their grandkids and their gardens and their bridge clubs, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. But if you said, let's go fishing, well, I won't go fishing. I won't personally fish, but I'll go fishing and you can fish your heart out, right? We'll have a barbecue and go camping and right. We'll go off and do exciting, fun things. But yeah, right? This is something new. And it's coming in my senior years. A little bit in my late adulthood, right? I had some good years with my husbands too, or husbands, my husband, right? Those were some good years. 100%. They impacted me in a way that I was able to walk out of that relationship with, well, some positive aspects, right? That rubbed off on me well. And I suspect that I rubbed off on him pretty good too, right? Okay, you guys, let's just pick a card here. I'm not reading, get all embarrassed here. Okay, beautiful girl. Aren't you sweet? Yeah, I don't think so. Liar, liar, pants on fire. But you got to think that was 1979 or 78, somewheres around there. Yeah, I think it was probably 70, 78, 77 or 78. And that's going back a ways. And I was no beauty, but you guys, I was a beauty, right? I was just hidden behind a lot of makeup. There you go. Okay. Cystic acne, my back looks like the moon. My husband used to get the zits on his back too, and he wouldn't let me break them open. Right? He didn't like that. And I usually would just they break open on the sheets and they just unwashed. They get cleaned up. But yeah, my husband had the zits on the back too. Uh have a good night, Eugene. Thank you for popping in. Put on your high heel shoes and dress when you're going live again. I don't mean to make you mad. I love beautiful women. That's all. Aw. May 29th, 2025 is my 43rd birthday. Happy birthday, Eugene. Hopefully you pop in on the 29th. And you know what? Test me to see if I remember. if it's your birthday. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? If I could remember and actually wish you a happy birthday. But if I don't remember, remind me on the 28th so that I can say happy birthday to you anyway. But anyway, getting back to this really quickly, it is in the eugenics. This is right. Um, I believe that we have to move in the majority, and we have to all live on base values in order to get along with ourselves and to get along with others. And you know, just in some of the events of the week, we could see we're just not even close to that, but we are moving towards that. And, I really do believe that we can do a lot better than what we're doing now. But I also know that we are doing a lot better than what we were doing 100 years ago. And that's the truth. Okay, you guys, 2 minutes tonight. Here's the card: balance. This is a really great word. I've had this word. I pull cards for myself every once in a while, right? And this word balance comes up for me all the time. I think I'm pretty well balanced. I think the idea of having anxiety, having anger, having worry, having fear, having heartbreak, like these are things, even though my life in the moment might be a little bit topsy turvy, I'm not worrying too much about those things. And it's not like I'm refusing to see reality. I'm quite aware that I don't have a job in the moment that puts the roof over my head, but I seem to be managing okay. And also at the same time, I understand in the serendipities, in the brain crumbs, in the lessons that come across my path, the conversations that come across my path, that I have to resonate. I have to be drawn into it. And those lessons are just not here in the moment. And then I take into consideration my sister is going in for quadruple heart bypass. That's a big, scary one. Oh my goodness. Possibly. Is it possible that I have this time off so that maybe I can help my sister a little bit? I'm going to give her a call tomorrow and see if maybe she wants to get together for coffee or, right, go off and watch a movie or some spend a little bit of time together. We are getting mature. All of us girls. I have three sisters. Me and three sisters. We are getting mature. But you know what? I think we are the first generations in many generations that we have made it, all of us, into our 50s. And I think in another couple of years, we will all be in our 60s. And that will be absolutely incredible, right? A lot of heart disease in our family, a lot of diabetes. But these are things, as we are more diverse in our choices of partners, bringing in new blood, right? That we will only build more strength because we only know that we use the best of ourselves, right? And that is only in what we learn from our parents. That comes from our upbringing, right? And sometimes we get stuck in the same kind of traditions, we'll call it traditions and cultures, that we get stuck in that, and there's no growth. There is just one idea, and one idea that is so imprinted and compounded that it isn't even ours anymore, right? That possibly that was never me, because my parents were both opposites in the extremes. My mother loved Jesus, and my father was very spiritual. It worked. It had to work. There really wasn't much of a choice there. But the choice was in us kids having the choice as to what direction we were going to go in. Didn't even understand that the direction that my dad was going in was spiritual, right? I just thought it was my dad's funny ideas that were a lot different than my mother's idea. My dad never stepped foot in the church after the day he got married. But back to this word balance, it's in how we feel, right? That's what gives us a sense of how we're doing. In that agitation, in the hairy, scary, that heartbreak, those are the indicators to say, pay attention. What do you need? Right? What can you do for yourself instead of waiting for somebody else to recognize that you're in a state and offer up assistance? What can we do for ourselves? I didn't have anybody, right? My entire life, I always just felt like I was all by myself. I had my dad, but for the most part, he was gone, right? He was a commercial fisherman. He took these jobs up, took them away at months at a time. And, right, like feral children, we picked up and we lost out. And in that balance, possibly of the two extremes, and being able to make some choices, a little bit of that, just out of safety and convenience and comfort, and a little bit of that for a little bit of joy and fun and knowledge and movement forward. And in the end, it worked. An amalgamation of it all. And guess what arrived out of that? Ta-da! And I'll be back to share tomorrow, you guys. Eugene, do you wear high heel shoes and dresses? Just for asking a question. High heel shoes. I used to work bars and nightclubs. I only wore the spikes. It was the only thing I could wear. Um, 6 months after quitting that job, I was in the flat shoes and my feet couldn't do the heels anymore. But yeah, on occasion, there's always a dress up day, but I'm not, right? I am not your Prada girl. For sure, I'm not the Prada girl. But, right? I have my own sense of style, my own sense of beauty, right? My own sense of fitting in to whatever club I need to fit into. You guys, we had balance as a word tonight. I enjoyed the conversation. It was short. Is it short? Well, not really. 40 minutes. And and I'll be back in. And I guess I'll stay up for another 40 minutes, finish my cup of tea here, which I haven't touched, taken a lesson, my own lesson, and call it a night. I'll be back tomorrow, you guys. Have a great night.